Alright, my name is Macy Everidge, and I will be presenting my final presentation for intercultural communication, in which I've looked at the phenomenon of social media as a global glue, specifically between sexual assault victims. The main idea is that social media, specifically TikTok, has become a global glue that helps victims of sexual assault heal and bring attention to something that has been historically ignored. And just to preface, victims of sexual assault could be considered a subculture of their own. As a female in today's society, I have seen social media bringing these people together. TikTok trends have even surfaced to show support. Just some stats on this, just as a preface for the whole presentation. The World Health Organization reports that 1 in 3 women worldwide have been subjected to sexual assault, whether from a partner or unknown assailant. In 2015, the National Sexual Violence Resource Center stated that 63% of this crime is never reported. If 30% of women worldwide are assaulted and 63% of these assaults are never reported, then the numbers are catastrophically higher than we know. And that's just the women. So, ways social media has helped. To spread the word, to elicit a movement, to start a trend, it's all the same in the grand scheme of things. So, some of the platforms that have helped, Pinterest is a platform for aesthetic life photos. I usually look at it for ads, just aesthetically pleasing things, some quotes. But at the same time, I find photos of angel shot explanations or victims supporting victims. So an angel shot is something that you can go in and order at a bar if somebody's being like super creepy, or if you're like at a restaurant and you go to the bar and you order an angel shot, the bartender knows that you need to be separated from who you're there with, that just there's something going on. And if you order a double, it means that they should call the police. So that's something that social media has brought attention to recently. It's really gotten it out there. People know about it now. YouTube has remained the same through the ages, but movements and speakers have started to use it to reach the masses. YouTube is YouTube. It hasn't really changed in a really long time. But movements like the Me Too movement or women's rights movements have begun to use YouTube as a way to promote these acts. And then TikTok, which is a relatively new app, especially has helped. Trends including tying up your hair, for recent victims in Pakistan, and wearing certain colors so victims know that they can speak to you free of judgment. The recent assaults, like in U.S. colleges, have even gained traction on TikTok. TikTok has allowed worldwide victims to reach out to each other. Duetting videos and commenting has made it possible to build a community of people inside of a community, much like a majority-minority. So I took a look at the social science perspective in the textbook. One of the quotes that kind of helps with this presentation is that the social science perspective emphasizes that identity is created in part by the self and in part in relation to group membership. This was found on page 161. So my understanding of this is that if identity is created partly in relation to group membership, then being a part of a group or a subculture will have a grand effect on who you are in your cultural identity. And in theory, much like being on a basketball team, this will give you a sense of belonging. Being a member of a community that suffers the same trauma will give you a sense of healing and belonging as well. Not only that, but it will become a part of who you are. Just a little bit about the Me Too movement, which gained traction on social media. It is impossible, basically, to not know about the Me Too movement these days. The movement was primarily focused on letting victims know that they are not alone and overcoming the trauma caused by an assault. The movement did begin in 2006, but it didn't go viral until 2016, when actress Alyssa Milano tweeted #MeToo. The sense of overcoming and belonging became a phenomenon as victims worldwide began to come forward and publicly announce that they too were victims. An article states that The movement made worldwide advancements, spreading across countries such as Italy, France, Japan, India, Egypt, Mexico, and Uruguay, and even upended some political races. So it crossed cultural, economic bounds, and it really brought people together. And it doesn't become who you are. Using social media to overcome such trauma doesn't make you who you are. You get to belong to multiple groups, and this is just one of them. So in the text, we learn that because we belong to various groups, we develop multiple identities that come into play at different times, depending on the context. For example, going to church or a temple, we may highlight our religious identity. In going to clubs or bars, we may highlight our sexual orientation identity. Women who join social groups exclusive to women, and likewise for men, are highlighting their gender identity. So my understanding for this is that while sexual assault may seem like something that takes everything out of you, it doesn't make you who you are. Much like women spending time with women to exercise their gender identity, victims may identify with victims, but they are still allowed to be students, teachers, daughters, sons, and friends. It doesn't completely change your cultural identity. So just something real quick, social media is making intercultural communication an instant event. It no longer takes any time to reach out to somebody across the globe. This makes healing interculturally possible as well. So I also took a look at the interpretive perspective. So in this perspective, it's emphasized that identities are negotiated, co-created, and reinforced, and challenged through communication with others. They emerge when messages are exchanged between persons. So my understanding is that people need people, especially following the lockdown that was caused by COVID, when interaction was really difficult. Communicating with people similar and different from yourself is essential to forming your identity. So all of this social media sharing and crossing intercultural and economic bounds is a sign of progress, both in communication and in humanity. So human culture can make its people either prone to either ignoring or understanding sexual assault trauma. Some countries sign a spouse's right to intercourse over in marriage, while others say marital assault is a crime against human rights. These are just different cultures. While the culture you were raised in may dictate what is legally done, it does not dictate what support is sought out on social media. Sometimes worldwide media is the only support victims receive. This has made social media a backbone for those in the victims' community. The anonymity that comes along with being a username instead of a person makes the cultural perspective disappear for a moment. So being a victim isn't a culture, it's more of a subculture, like a minority of sorts. So some ideas from the text is the minority identity development. There are ideas in the text that minorities, as we are thinking of victims right now, tend to think more about their identity as they grow into it than majorities do. They are not as aware of their cultural place. So just like in the text, an unexamined identity for victims may take place when they try to pretend that nothing has happened, and conformity stage would be continuing with life as normal. Resistance and separatism may occur when victims realize that they are not alone or receive backlash from those they thought were friends for something that is not even their fault. Integration happens when you overcome the feelings of fear, loneliness, or rage. This is something that is brought about recently by social media. It's making it a lot easier for these people to come forward. So the global glue, social media, signs of intercultural growth. So looking at trends again, like I mentioned before, trends on social media spark a worldwide response to events. Some of these include the angel shot, putting up your hair, certain jewelry, or certain gestures in public settings. All of these kind of arose on TikTok or were brought back to light. But other than these trends, there are movements and people willing to speak out globally now that we have access to it. So on the growth side, historically, issues like the Me Too movement and a rise in sexual assault wouldn't have been ignored exactly, but more like unnoticed. Globally, it wouldn't have been something that we talked about globally. It would have just been inside separate cultures. A global community made possible by media and communication has made the possibility of intercultural humanitarian issues as well. We don't live in a purely economic world anymore, something that's separated by lines on a map. We live in a world focused on better life for generations to come. We see this in the world fighting for sustainability and climate change. We see it in the world fighting for more backlash against sexual assault. We see it in the world, even with just the world kind of standing up for Ukraine with the conflict with Russia. So in conclusion, the concept is that social media has become a global glue for victims of sexual assault thanks to the intercultural communication it affords, bringing to light the human need for belonging. The text explains that culturally, people tend to relate to those similar to them and learn from those who are different from them. We develop an identity due to what we are exposed to. The understanding, after this presentation, is that what you are closest to and what you are exposed to forms little faucets in your cultural identity. Because of this, victims find solace in each other in the same way that members of minorities do. In conclusion, because of this, social media has become a place of solidarity for victims, and not just those of sexual assault. 2022 has brought a wave of movements and understanding, overcoming cultural bounds and becoming purely humanitarian and not just cultural. And then these are my works cited. I used a couple articles, and then all of the text that was cited in this is from Chapter 5 in the textbook Intercultural Communication in Contexts. Thank you.